Hello everyone and welcome to this very special webinar from BroadGroup in association with Pi DATACENTERS and Intel Corporation. Whether you're joining us from the US, Europe, India or elsewhere, we thank you for taking time out of your day to join us. I will introduce you to the presenters and the speakers as we proceed with the program today. We'd like to extend our warmest thanks to Pi DATACENTERS for collaborating with us to bring you the very latest insights into the data center trends and activity. Pi DATACENTERS is India's first Uptime Institute certified Tier IV data center with world-class infrastructure. It takes the humble credit for introducing mega data centers to the Indian industry with intelligent and fully automated DCIM. Pi DATACENTERS is a 100% automated SCADA-enabled data center facility. Apart from its wide range of colocation and managed services, Pi offers an enterprise cloud platform called Harbour One. Being one of India's leading data center and cloud companies, Pi DATACENTERS is trusted highly for its excellent service and quality infrastructure delivered out of an SDDC environment. Today, in this webinar, we will witness an exciting mega launch program from Pi DATACENTERS. Over the next 2 hours, we will see a presentation from Pi DATACENTERS on how Hyperscale data center and cloud major is helping both global and local enterprises to grow their businesses in India. This will be followed by another presentation from Intel Corporation on the latest data center and cloud technology innovations that will enable their partners like Pi DATACENTERS to deliver world-class services. We will host a panel discussion session on deploying hyperscale data centers and digital infrastructure in India for colocation, hyperscale and cloud, with representation of senior leadership from Intel, Uptime Institute, JLL and Pi DATACENTERS. We have reserved some time for a question and answer session at the end of the panel discussion. We request you to please send your questions via our Q&A chat function during the panel discussion. But first, let's play a quick video to introduce you to Pi DATACENTERS. I'd now like to welcome Bhaskar Fadlamani, Chief Operating Officer at Pi DATACENTERS. Bhaskar comes with more than 20 years of experience of diverse technology portfolios. Bhaskar spent close to 2 decades at Infosys, of which he spent a decade in China, setting up operations for the company in China. Being the second in command at Pi DATACENTERS, Bhaskar ensures continuous improvement of the business procedures while he leads the overall business development and operations at Pi. Being a key driver of the organization's financial efficiency, Bhaskar formulates and leads sustainable strategies, both for internal and external growth of Pi DATACENTERS. Bhaskar will present how global and national enterprise giants are growing and expanding in India through Pi DATACENTERS. I now hand over to you, Bhaskar.
Thank you, Neri. So let me share the screen. Is the deck visible, Neri?
Yes, Bhaskar.
All right, all right. All right, thanks, Neri, for that warm introduction. And good evening and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Bhaskar Vadlamani, Chief Operating Officer at Pi Data Center. I am very excited to run this session for you. And just to set the context on what Neri mentioned, today in especially the data center industry, and in particularly in the country, we're all used to offer to our customers in terms of colocation offering as a racks or associated with the power and the other associated offerings. But what we have also realized is, if you look at the hyperscalers, the public cloud organizations, and then larger enterprises, both the international and local, the key element that everyone is looking from the data center providers is in terms of the quality of the power and the amount of power. And that's where we felt that something that we need to do this and address to the these key customers. And today we are here to do something different and launch this mega power offering from Pi Data Centers as part of our colocation services. So, last couple of weeks, it's been pretty exciting, and I know we're all keeping you, in suspense for the last 2-3 weeks in social media, and I'll not, hold it on for too long. And but still, you have to wait for a few minutes, about 12 to 13 minutes to really see what exactly is that offer. And I'm excited too, as well, along with you, to really launch that offer on behalf of Pi Data Centers. And before getting there, I'll take this opportunity to introduce you to our Pi Data Center offerings, along with a bit of statistics in terms of how this data explosion is going on. So I'll spend about next 14 to 15 minutes in covering 4 broader areas. So number one, I'll give you a sneak peek view in terms of how the data explosion is happening, how the digital transformation is happening across the world, and in particular India, and especially in this particular era of pandemic COVID-19. And second, as a second chapter, I will reintroduce HarborOne, our flagship cloud platform, which we have launched about 4 years back, and it's been aggressively growing. And obviously, rightly partnered with Intel, and complete platform is built on Intel architecture. And as part of the third, chapter, I'll introduce you, why you should look at data centers, and in particularly why Pi. Right, and I'll talk about how we are doing differently, especially in the Indian market, considerations, and what are the different value propositions that we bring into our customers. And as part of the fourth agenda item, I'll be excited to launch, the much awaited, last few weeks, the mega offer that we are calling, and I'll be looking forward to that. So let me jump into my first chapter, which is essentially about the data. So if you look at, I think across the world, I think the digital transformation is happening very rapidly, and in particular India as well. In particular, if you look at the last 1 year, I think COVID-19 has kind of created this more urgency in terms of digital transformation, because a lot of things needs to be automated. And definitely, I'm sure a lot of you people would have heard that the real CTO or a CIO of organization is the COVID-19 these days. So let me share you some data, what is happening in particular in India. If you look at the internet bubble, it's been going on. If you look at these numbers, right, almost close to 1,000 million by 2025 is what is expected, and it is growing at an 18%, from the statistic details. And similarly, from smartphone adoption as well, the numbers are nothing less. And interestingly, the rural India is contributing heavily. So that is where I think the real digital transformation is happening, and somewhere it is aligning with our PI's strategy also in terms of spreading our data centers in different cities in the country. You will see that in a short while. But this is the kind of magnitude that we are seeing, and I'm very, very confident, and I can only guess that it is going to get exploded in the next few years. Thanks to our partners, JLL here. If you look at this particular slide, I think data centers are playing a very, very pivotal role, especially in the pandemic post era. Right? If you look at, for a country which is aspiring to be a 5 trillion economy, I think there is a huge opportunity of close to 5 billion investment opportunity only in the data center, right? If you see today, the current numbers are, 375 megawatts of utilization, and it's been growing consistently, in the last 6 months, about 14%. And, obviously the public cloud players are, occupying almost close to 50. But I think our JLL friends are predicting that it is going to triple in the next 5 years. And I think, friends, if you are, data center players, partners, and also, some of you, if you are investors, I think this is a great news, because if you look at, there is only, demand is going to grow heavily, exponentially in the next 5 years. And this is a time that all of us, need to really get up to address the demand by, creating that supply in terms of the data centers. So another interesting slide, if you look at, as I mentioned, we are about 375 megawatts of consumption, when you look at country India, and then we are going to almost triple in the next 5 years. It's growing at about 21%. And there is a huge shift of on-premises infrastructure to a third-party colocation service offerings, right? And we have seen that significantly in the last 7 months, 8 months in particular. Our own organization and also our friends and competitors. There is the people are actually waiting for this logistics to open up to really move their on-premises infrastructure to the data centers. So and obviously the hyperscalers are going to grow. And so what I think this data tells is there is going to be a dearth of data center capacity even from the existing players, and definitely there is a need for existing players to expand, and also new players obviously will come. So the demand is going to be huge, and it is only up to us in terms of providing that supply to address the customer needs. And that is where, and that is exactly where we are looking at creating this kind of a mega kind of service offering, which is kind of unprecedented, as I mentioned earlier. And we are very excited to see how it is going to evolve in the coming few months. So another important aspect, if you look at, there is a lot of press, if you look at from a data privacy perspective. Pi Data Centers, as as you all know, is one of the leading top 5 data centers as per Gartner consecutively in the last 3 years. Being in that role, we've been invited in multiple forums with the lawmakers, policymakers in terms of discuss this particular item. And I think 3 things that we need to understand. One, this personal data protection bill 2019, there is a lot really to understand. And I think few key things coming out of it, at least from my perspective, is definitely there is going to be huge penalties if these things are not addressed appropriately, number one. Number two, government has already made a few, while it's a kind of like little diluted initially, compared to the promise or the kind of effect that it was going to bring. But if you look at, there are enough signals that it is going to go more and more stringent and follow some of the other countries that have already followed. So essentially, the customer data of a country is naturally going to reside in that country, and that is going to be the way. And this will, exponentially, build up the demand perspective. And this is also one of the things that all of us need to key, closely watch to ensure that we are prepared to address this particular demand. So that's a little bit of sneak view in terms of how this data explosion, data localization policies are going to impact our supply and demand. So with that, let me introduce you to our flagship cloud platform, Harbor One. And as you can see, it completely runs into an Intel architecture. And as like any other public cloud platform, we provide all the three key elements of a cloud platform, be it infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, right? And well, of course, the only difference probably with us compared to public cloud players is, they are there in probably multiple countries. And today we are there only in India to start with. But if you ask me, there is absolutely no difference in terms of the technology, in terms of the scale within India, and in terms of our supportability to all of our customers. So we have hundreds of customers, we are supporting today, including banks and governments and different segments of of our customers. And as you would expect from any enterprise grade cloud platform, we help our customers in terms of public cloud, private cloud, and different community clouds, choosing their different segments. And of course, hybrid cloud is the necessity of the day, where all the enterprises are looking at having their workloads in different environments and then connect with the hybrid cloud paradigm. So, in my opinion, there is absolutely no difference, or HarborOne is nothing less than any other public cloud platform or any other cloud platform that you would see. But let me show you how we are different, in our own perspective from some of the CSPs that probably you are working with, just to get a view in terms of how we are gearing up. This is a little quick attempt in terms of how we think we are different. There will be a lot of substantiation that we can do in terms of technology-wise, but I just picked up some 4 key elements. One, of course, we have kind of removed the rigidity that some of the CSPs have in terms of infrastructure. We made it quite flexible, because what we believe is the customers, you understand your applications better than anyone else, and hence we felt a need for you to really choose the kind of infrastructure configuration that you want. That's number one. Number two, as you understand, HarborOne sits in Pi DATACENTERS, owned by the same roof, and hence what happens is, if you look at any other public cloud platform today, while you might be talking to one person, but you are actually dependent, or your quality of services is actually dependent on 3 different verticals. One, the data center player; second, the cloud platform player, software provider; and third is the actual SI partner who's actually supporting you, right? But if you look at with HarborOne, HarborOne is sitting in Pi DATACENTERS, and the people who are supporting also are belonging to Pi DATACENTERS. So if you look at the data center ownership and the customer support, so this is where we differentiate big time. Purely in terms of TCO, it's about average 30% difference that you would see, and on the customer support side, you'll see some of the reasons why I'm talking about. Easily, you will see about 35% difference in terms of customer, both in terms of commercial and also with respect to user experience. And the last one, this is again very specific to a lot of this regulatory kind of customers, where there is a need for the customers to co-locate some of their infrastructure along with the cloud, where they are actually started their cloud journey. And this is possible only with players like us, and not possible with some of the public cloud CSPs. So that's a quick introduction about HarborOne. So let me walk you through. So this is one surprise that I kept. I've not talked about it, and I'm very excited and glad to announce you that today, formally in the morning, our CEO has launched this AMR-IX. It's Internet Exchange at Pi DATACENTERS, Amravati. This is our first data center, and Internet Exchange is launched. And the reason for the excitement is, today, if you look at in the country, there are only 4 locations where Internet Exchange is already present. Mumbai, Delhi, Hyderabad, and Chennai. And Pi Data Amravati is going to be the 5th location. Now, what it means to customers and the entire ecosystem is, there are millions of users today without this exchange are actually getting routed through the existing 4 different exchanges. Now, with this exchange, where already we have about 4 ISPs logged in within the first 1 week, and we are looking at another set of ISPs, both upstream and downstream, appearing in very soon. But what it brings to each one of us in the ecosystem is, definitely there is a huge increase in the efficiency of the routing, because the users who are belonging to that region doesn't have to go to these the exchanges that are there only in those 4 locations. They can leverage the exchange that is set up now. And obviously, because of this efficiency in the routing, there is an increased stability. And from a user perspective, there is a huge drop in the latency. And this is where, this exchange is going to really make it a differentiator. And obviously, the costs are going to come down for the end user, for the downstream ISPs, upstream ISPs, and also for the enterprises who are actually requiring, lots of bandwidth to operate it to our customers. So we are very, very excited. And this is also as part of our mega launch, one of the things that we are going to put together. And this is something that we are really excited to take it to our customers, especially the CDN players or people who are requiring huge amounts of, bandwidth to distribute their content in the country. All right. Now, I'm sure, a lot of people are following this Netflix why 13 reasons. And in the same theme, we looked at, what are the things that would really are putting us as a differentiator in the market, where, there are a lot of data center players are there, and some of them are new or coming up. But we have thought through this, and then we believe that these are the 5 areas where we strongly believe that there is a clear substantiation in terms of the value proposition that we are bringing to our customers. So to start with, I'm very excited and proud to say that, the state-of-the-art infrastructure that we have built at our first data center in Amaravati is something that, we're all very proud. As you can see, if you look at about 4 years back, we are one of those initial pioneers who have introduced, Tier 4 concept in the country. And I'm sure you will hear from, Mustafa, who himself personally has, reviewed this. And we are those, one of those first data centers who have introduced the overall Tier 4 standards in the country. And now, a few other friends have followed suit. But even today, if you look at, there are barely a couple of them, the entire country, who actually have stood to that kind of infrastructure grading. And what it means to the end customers, obviously, a very stringent 99.995% of uptime, high availability. And in terms of the infrastructure, just to give you some data, it's a pretty huge data center. It can host the entire banking industry in the country. It's built over 10 acres of land, 5,000 racks capacity. And, this is the 60 megawatt power is something very unusual that you'll see within a single data center. And that is something that we are proud of. And that is one of the reasons why we thought probably we should be the, the players who should take the first step in terms of introducing this whole mega power kind of service offering to our customers. And this 100% automated SCADA. And I tell you honestly, when we did this 4 years back, it was a wonderful initiative. But then in the last 6 to 9 months, we have really seen the power of this particular automation that we have done. Today, if you look at the last 1 year of pandemic situation, we were able to successfully operate with a very, very thin team on our premises, and ensured that none of our customers got impacted. And this has really come helped us a lot. I mean, there are about 25,000 of sensors in the data center that constantly feed the data, because of which all our engineers working remotely were able to completely monitor, manage, and fix if there are any issues. And that is the reason in the last 3 years, while the SLA commitment is about 99.995, and we were never below 100%. And of course, we have this 8-level stringent physical security, which is also one of the unique features. So let me quickly go to the second one. So this is another interesting key value proposition. We believe we offer some of the best latency to our customers. The reasons, obviously, our data center, as you can see in the map, is very, very close to the golden quadrilateral, and because of which all the 6 ISPs, they terminate their, fiber. They run their fiber, obviously, along with the national highways in the country. And hence, it became very easy for them to terminate their fiber in our data centers. Today, many of the ISPs actually distribute their bandwidth through our data centers. And because this is one of the reasons why, our data center location enjoys one of the very good or, lower latencies compared to any other location in the country, right? I mean, you can actually check it out, validate it on a cool ticker tool that we have on our website. And bandwidth, again, because of this first phenomena, all the 6, ISPs can provide, huge scales of bandwidth. We have, multiple players from Southeast Asia where they're leveraging this, gigabytes to petabytes of bandwidth, distributing the content from our country, within the country, because it becomes very easy for them to replicate the servers from their location to our location as compared to Mumbai because of the latency. And obviously, we have redundant fiber being a Tier 4 data center. We have redundant fiber routes to the DC. And one interesting thing is, besides the the regular ISPs who run their fiber along the national highway. We also have a ISP who run their fiber along with the railroad. That kind of brings in another element of redundancy to our customers, because we're just not dependent only. What happens, if something happens on the national highway, then all the ISPs might get choked. So that is also we have thought through to ensure that our customers are getting the best service offering. And then we talked about the internet exchange. We are very excited to see, and this is going to create huge advantage to the location, the ecosystem, the ISP community, and the user community, where millions of users. In fact, one of the trivia is the location where the state, where the data center is situated, has actually significantly increased their internet usage in the last 7 months during pandemic. It's about probably ranked first or second in the country. Investing in green future. So we're all set to kind of convert our data center at least to 50% to start with a completely renewable energy. And this is another step towards ensuring that we are building a sustainable environment and reducing the carbon output. And this also kind of gives a stability to the power, quality to the power, and also bring in more efficiencies in terms of our cost. And the future data centers that are upcoming in different locations that you will see are also is something that the percentages of the green power is going to definitely increase more and more. Lower risk, having an advantage of choosing the data center locations in different cities, not constrained by the bandwagon, going to a particular place where everyone is there. One of the advantages, or one of the key design principles, what we have done is to choose the right place even in that city, which is completely non-prone to the natural disasters. So if you look at all the locations that we have built and we are planning to build, we are ensuring that these locations, they do not have any recorded history of earthquakes or floods in the last 70 years. So that's another element of while we can do hundreds of things on the cybersecurity side, but if you look at on the geographic side, this is one of the key design principles that we've ensured that especially when you talk about hyperscalers, etc. This is a very key thing that they need to look into it. Lower TCO, as I said, we are in a place where the power is abundant, and the land and the construction, cost efficiencies are huge, and human resources are also huge. Comparatively, relatively compared to the other cities in the country, there is a good of optimization, and having an advantage of having an abundance of land, as I mentioned earlier, and also having availability. If you look at one of the panel is an ATD certified, and there are only single-digit number ATD professionals that are there in the country, and some of them are with us. And with all this in combination, we were able to achieve a very efficient PUE, and it's a continuous journey. And then we really want to achieve a PUE, as comparable as to a data center that is actually under the sea or under the Arctic Circle. So that's our goal and vision, and we are tirelessly trying to innovate in this particular area, and you will hear more and more in the coming years, how we are able to optimize this PUE while we are in a hot country, right? All right. So I'm very excited, I bit of ran through this because I want to ensure that we are utilizing this time of 15 minutes. But I was actually looking for this slide, and I'm very much excited, as I mentioned. And without much ado, let me launch this page for all of you. And I'm looking, and on behalf of Pi DATACENTERS, we are all looking for a greater conversations regarding this subject. So let me introduce with a silence here. Right. So this is the offer that we're talking about in the last 2-3 weeks on the social media. So what we're talking about, we're not talking about in terms of racks or in terms of any other metric. And we are saying for 1 megawatt power per month, we're charging about 75 lakhs or an equivalent of 100K USD with a conversion of $75, and this is including PUE. So this cost includes the real estate space of 3,500 square feet, which should easily accommodate about 120 to 150 racks. But this is something that we believe that it's a path breaking, and I'm sure if you're a hyperscaler, if you're a large enterprise, or if you're a public cloud player, this is an exciting offering that you should look into this, and we'll be very happy to do more conversations with you on this model. All right, but no disappointment for for the rest of the SME sector or any other sector who wants to still continue on the pay-per-use model or the traditional rack model. We will continue to do that, and this is a pricing that they're going to leverage. And this is also very, very optimized, including PUE. We're charging 18K for a 42U full rack, and a very, very optimized price of 9.9 INR per kilowatt unit, and completely based on utilization. I'm giving a 3 seconds pause to absorb these numbers, and I'm sure you can note this and then do some calculations in terms of your requirements. And it does come with this value-added services, which are pretty natural with any of the data centers. And let me quickly introduce you as my last part of my presentation before I hand it over to Mary. So these are the 6 different representative list of value-added services. And as I mentioned, we have one of the best talents in the country certified on the ATD, so they can help you actually to do the capacity planning and custom designs for your requirements different ways. Because we are a horizontal structure, we are not in a vertical structure like some of them you will see in metro cities. So each of our data location is actually going horizontally. So there is a lot of scope for innovative and custom designs and custom planning. So we'll be very happy to do that. And migration assistance is something that we have been doing quite consistently and seamlessly in the last several years. And we will ensure that this is something that we will completely take care, right from switching off from where you are to switch on, and then your services are up and running. Till that point, it's a very migration in a box kind of a structure where you'll be updated every hour of that process. And we have a very professionally run through process, which you will have a complete comfort. And obviously the hands-on I support. And I'll have to tell you this, we have few customers from Singapore and other places, and in the last 3 years, they never had to come to our data center for any of the needs. And all our resources, the non-IT staff are able to seamlessly handle for any of their needs. And this actually proves to a point that the data centers does not have to be near to your enterprise or your head office. And I think we very strongly believe, and this is what we are preaching to the industry as well, and we strongly believe that the data centers have to be in a location which needs to be high available, low risk, cost effective, and low latency. That's all. It doesn't have to be at your arm's length or in a city that you like. So and I am sure the industry will react to this, and I'm sure industry will adopt to this, and there are quite a few examples that we have in-house that we can have reference. In spite of this, if you want to have your own resources to monitor your own workloads, either your resources or our resources on behalf of your resources, and if you want to have a isolation, we have this dedicated NOCs, which are again a very unique concept in the country. No other data centers have created. I mean, I think the global NOCs are pretty common, but I think we have thought through this, a very similar model to an ODC kind of a structure on the IT side. We have created this, dedicated NOCs for our customers, where they can have their own resources completely isolated, and they can monitor the workloads in our data center and also the other data center. And bandwidth, as we talked about earlier in the slides, we have all the ISPs of your choice, and we have already helped a lot of our customers to leverage the bandwidth, and with internet exchanges coming in, these are going to be much more optimized, and user experience also is going to increase. So we can help you to get your bandwidths anywhere from gigabytes to petabytes, very easily within a short notice. So I thank you really for this opportunity, and thanks for hearing me out. And I'm really excited, on behalf of Pi DATACENTERS to launch this mega pricing offer. And I also took an opportunity to introduce a few of other differentiators that we've been doing. And I'm really excited to, looking forward to the conversations that are coming out of this. Thank you very much. Neri, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bhaskar, and thank you for that awesome presentation. I would now like to take the opportunity to welcome Salma Fukan, Director of Sales, India Key Accounts at Intel Corporation. Salma has been with Intel for over 17 years, managing diverse portfolios such as sales, partner programs, and vertical solution planning across the APG and PRC markets. In his current role, Salma is responsible for the overall business consumption across India's enterprise, government, and cloud sectors. An experienced technology veteran with a results-oriented approach, Salma has led B2B transformation across various sectors, such as government, BFSI, e-commerce, and the digital payment landscape. He leads the growth strategies and go-to-market opportunities across Intel's client and data-centric portfolios. Salma will now present how Intel collaborates with Pi DATACENTERS for accelerating cloud and innovation together. I now hand over to you, Salma.
Thanks, Nairi. And before I start, I just want to congratulate Pi on the mega launch. It's a pleasure to see our partners like Pi, who we work with on a regular basis to improve our leaps and bounds. And if you think about it, right, I hope everybody can see the screen. If you can think about it, right, Intel actually prides itself on being able to drive the work with the global hyperscalers. You know, we probably were an early catalyst working with them, and then we've expanded the portfolio not only to work with them, but a broader set of cloud service providers, and that are driving this whole transition into an efficient, scalable model called the cloud. Right? We work with them on a technology basis, on a software basis, and we have been innovating with them. However, if you look at it from where we stand currently, the few things that is very observable to us. One, I think the world is going through some very disruptive technology inflections. You could talk about 5G, you could talk about artificial intelligence, you could talk about the conversation of distributed or edge architectures. So that's kind of one thing about this, right? And Bhaskar talked about a very interesting view about digital transformation and acceleration. Everybody talked about digital transformation, but I think what COVID has done or the pandemic has done is compress the cycle. And once you compress the cycle, it requires a very different behavior or timeline to be able to do that. And in that environment, we believe that innovating together with our partners like Pi, with the customer that some of you are working on, Nairi mentioned some of that, working together to be able to bring in disruptive innovation that makes more technology efficient offerings for the customer would drive the next level of change for the world in general, right? And we pride ourselves, if you look at our purpose and vision, we talk about how do we use technology to enrich every individual's life on this planet. And that's what we aspire for, that's what we're proud about. And in that, working with partners like Pi is very key. Okay. Coming to cloud, I think there are the three mega trends that all of us should be observing, especially in the current world, right? The first one on the network side, 5G. What 5G is, enabling globally, and we have heard our government, the Indian government, to talk about it, is enabling new experiences services. This is actually necessitating that we, as an industry or as a world, relook at how we look at compute and network, because the ability to offer different kinds of services, different experiences, has a lot of dependency on the technology underlying that. And that is something that we as Intel believe is one of the mega trends that we need to work on and really investing on. The second, artificial intelligence becoming pervasive, right? I mean, we have always, historically, there's a lot of data, or legacy data, as we call it a lot of time, and legacy data has been an issue, whether you're talking about storage or just managing or just audit regulations, what have you. But what AI has done, it has converted that into a big opportunity. It is about ability to use the data to drive intelligence and drive good business decisions. It's becoming pervasive increasingly, and that's the big opportunity or technology inflection for us to think about what we as Intel are working on to partners again. The last piece of it, what we believe, is the intelligent edge. The way we bring this conversation up is, as we talk about the 5G conversation, right? As we bring in some of the conversations around, the richness of video and experience or intelligence requirement, it has implications about, data sovereignty. It has implications about data latency. So more and more compute and intelligence need or is expected by the customers to be closer to the customer versus the classical, data center server client architecture that we historically knew. That throws up a different conversation of how we look at offering, the infrastructure, and top of that, the services that we talk about, or Pi is looking at from a cloud services perspective. And what underlies all this, if you really look at these mega trends, and you think about what would make it possible, with the scale, the security, the reliability that we need, it's about the target operational model called cloud. So cloudification is the underlying theme or scalable, efficient model that would enable us to do that, right? Now, let's bring this further. When we talk about that mega trends I talked about, as well as the conversation that I had about, hey, we're compressing essentially the digital transformation cycle. And if you think about healthcare and education, great examples, right? People thought about doing everything online was possible, but now it has become a necessity, right? So it has actually enabled a difference in terms of working patterns, right? Economic realities. I mean, think about the kind of cost of providing the kind of healthcare that we need in this current pandemic versus typical healthcare budgets, especially in emerging markets like India, right? It has also necessitated difference in terms of uncertainties. The advantage of technology, what have you, is the function of being able to respond quickly. And Bhaskar touched upon it. He's saying, hey, COVID has redefined the importance of business continuity plans, right? So to keep some of those conversations, as we looked at what we do from an Intel perspective, the three things that we have always focused on historically, right? One is we believe that if you really look at the cloud services or as a service operational model, a lot of focus, a lot of bottlenecks has moved from the compute to the I/O, okay, or the IOPS that we talk about, right? So we have always started working on what we could do from a connectivity perspective. Historically, we have been one of the pioneers of funding up Ethernet, but now we are moving on into optics, like silicon photonics. You could have heard about the barefoot network. So moving data and intelligence faster on the network is one of the key areas of focus we have. Of course, the second piece is storage, right? I mean, people are generating, depending on the report you go with, 1.7 to 2, megabytes of data per second, right? Now the question is, that's the tip of the iceberg, okay? When you talk about that in the context of video, and you're talking about things like computer vision driving, autonomous cars, what have you, the increasing usage of data and the ability to access the data fast, right? It's not only about data. You always have hardware disk drive. You can always drive more, but the ability to access that fast with low latency and then drive intelligence out of it has become more and more important. And in that, we have seen Intel again pioneering some of the things about Optane persistent memory or Optane SSD. That's one area of focus that we have had. And finally, of course, we talked about processor. Intel has always been known for the Xeon, but as I talked about the trends that we are seeing, the one very visible thing is it's highly unlikely that you have a one size fits all. Number one, right? It's very unlikely that you'll have one kind of workload, one processor fits all kinds of workload. So you have potentially have heterogeneous workloads, and you have different kind of requirements that needs different kind of computing capabilities. Second, it's unlikely to be centralized. It's more going to be distributed. And if you really look at Intel's portfolio over time, we have expanded from even the Xeon platform, by the way. We now have customized solutions, whether you're talking about a compute-intensive workload, you're planning to run more, virtual machines, or you think it is more, network optimized. So we have all, historically expanded the Xeon portfolio, but beyond that, we talked about the Atom portfolio. We have talked about accelerators. We have recently made our foray and announcement around our GPU or graphics set of capabilities that we have. And then through acquisitions of Movidius, Habana Labs, we have purpose-built processors. We're talking about the edge or talking about AI training, what have you. So in essence, from a platform perspective, we really talked about connectivity, storage, and compute. But of course, the glue that builds all of this is the software, right? So we, besides just providing the components, we are very willing to work with you, and I'll share you examples for the end of the presentation of how you work with organizations to do system level optimization. It's no longer good to say, oh, my CPU performance is X% higher, Y% higher. It has to be optimized at some of the things that Bhaskar touched upon. What does the PUE give me? What is the rack level conversation? What is the thermal cost? Right? It also talks about the moment you're doing a workload, it talks about, are the software running the best outcome on the platform? Is it best optimized? Is it giving the best TCO? Is it giving the best transactions, what have you? And of course, security is the underlying privacy thing, which we talked about. Yeah, so in essence, while we talked about the trends, we have moved into enabling a broader portfolio and a stack with software and system level optimization to be able to work with our partners like Pi and others, and end customers like an SBI or a cloud customer like Flipkart to talk about, to enable them the best potential solution for the customer. Because at the end of the day, the customer wins, then Intel is enriching everybody's life, and we've done our business that way. There could be a lot of trend, but as we talk to our partners and our customers, the three things that are becoming very obvious as we talk about the next generation of disruption, specifically in the cloud environment. Number one, heterogeneity, right? As we talk about, if you really look at the a cloudification journey, doesn't matter the workload, doesn't matter the work, organization, you'd probably see kind of a three-layer organization or a three-stage process, right? Somebody's probably starting entirely on the public cloud today, like a digital native, or somebody could have having it entire in a legacy environment for their own. And the first step of the journey is to think about, okay, let me cloudify certain workloads. It could land up in the public cloud, what have you, right? So you started workload, that's kind of stage one. To me, the stage two becomes, you kind of think about a mix of, public cloud and private or hybrid, where you still have legacy applications out there to be able to make it work, saying, hey, I'm still not breaking my business process. The final stage is, and think about when you do the stage two, you suddenly lead into things like orchestration, right? How do I orchestrate across this environment, right? What do I ensure that I'm not kind of giving out resources that I could have utilized more efficiently for something else? And the third piece of the journey is about moving into a complete seamless multi-cloud environment, which would pick up the best, whether it's from multiple, public cloud providers or hyperscalers or the internal private cloud, because cloud, at the end of the day, is the target state. So ability to address heterogeneity across, depending on workload, depending on the gaps we have created on software versus hardware installations in our organization, to us, that is one area we are looking to work with you collectively on. And that's one of the pillars of innovation that we are driving forward, working with partners, cloud partners like Pi, but also with the end user. The second is, no surprise, security. First part, doesn't matter what research report you do, the exposure of potential breaches that we see globally over the next 4 or 5 years runs into trillions, right? So there is definitely an increased security threat. And the more and more we drive this kind of complexity about heterogeneous cloud environment, public versus private, depending upon, hey, I need something to be closer to the edge, the vulnerability of a system actually increases. That's kind of one. The second thing that we're seeing as a trend is what also Bhaskar touched upon in his presentation about the data protection bills. There's a data privacy conversation. How do we ensure that we enable, irrespective of where we locate ourselves, and most of organizations are now supporting global customers, right? Offering global offerings. Pi is a great example there, right? In that conversation, how do you ensure that we're also meeting the local requirements at the same time, not necessarily expanding or ballooning the cost out of proportion? And last part of it is, of course, the encryption cycle, right? We can do a lot of stuff. The question is, every time you do a lot of stuff, you add in a lot of code. The moment you add in a lot of code, it essentially increases your encryption cycle. What does this mean? It decreases your performance. You're spending a lot of, I would say, costly storage of, IO and compute cycles trying to decode encryption programs versus really focusing on running the business and running the organization. So the second pillar we talk about, and some of you may have heard in different conversations, our work with Microsoft, Azure, etc., around confidential computing and some of the things around software guarded extensions. So that's a second pillar. We are looking to innovate together with us, the partners and the end customers, to see what is the next level of enablement we can do to drive this growth. Last but not the least, it is interesting to see in Bhaskar talk about I have the lowest, the PUE, I have the lowest cost on per hour and thermals. Absolutely important, right? How we extracted the best performance out of this conversation for this whole workload for my customer and my customer's customer? Have we made sure we have made the most efficient usage of your resources? And when I talk about resources, especially in the classical data center environment, it's no longer like you're telling about the hardware. It's about the hardware, it's about the software, it is about the infrastructure that they've used. It is optimized at a rack level? Is it optimized at the system level? Is it optimized at a customer level? So what is the optimal, total cost of ownership or ROI that we can generate for the customer? Some of it is just, working based on what we know, but think about it. When we look at a platform level, Intel has access at a platform level, at a component level of what we call telemetry information. We are able to use that, something that we think is the next level of disruption for us, right? And where we're working closely again with partners. So again, collectively, when we talk about innovation, we have the platforms ready. We're working across the stack. But these are the 3 areas, and there are more. I mean, I'm not going to say this is it. I'm sure there's uptime. I'm sure there are different kinds of edge services that need to happen. But at a macro level, these are probably 3 trends that we are looking forward, and we should discuss this in more detail subsequently, probably in a separate session of how we are working through what are the issues that you were seeing and how we can work together to finally provide better offering to you and your customers. I just want to do my Intel conversation as well in terms of stepping back, right? Historically, I've always known as a silicon provider. But if you look at this list, you'll understand that we have at least 3 layers of this conversation. And that's what I've been trying to walk you through over the last kind of 10, 12 minutes, right? Surely we provide the silicon, but more importantly, we ensure that if you really look at an Intel architecture, end to end, you're probably looking at hopefully the best hardware platform that gives you the A, the best capabilities, and B, is optimized on performance value. So we talked about the hardware platforms, right? The second thing, we're spending a lot of cycles, right? When we're talking about workload optimizations. Today, it is hardly about off the rack or common purpose built hardware and software that drives the workload, especially in this open source environment, right? So we have you have a significant amount of work going into the open source community, right? An open source environment where we work with the community and we work with the ecosystem to have optimized different kinds of workloads, right? You can talk about Apache, you can talk about MySQL, you can also take enterprise workloads like HANA. How do you work with them to be able to make sure that the applications or workloads are extracting the best benefit out of the platform capabilities we have, and then this further exposed out, gen on gen, or from the value perspective for the end customer to be able to maximize their return on investment and total cost of ownership. That's kind of number 2. And the last piece of this I bring together is I put the slant in the beginning of the conversation around 5G, right? The moment you start with 5G and new services, a lot of these conversations which builds on top of the horizontals. We always talk about the application server, the web server, the middle server, what have you. The difference when you come into a 5G kind of conversation is about edge use cases. Think about an example where you are really using a vision technology, right, to be able to provide best kind of capabilities in a railway environment or in a restaurant environment, right? Or you are thinking about new kind of more I would say more algorithms for optimization. Think about how we want to do HTML offload, for example. There are a lot of graph databases coming up. What do we do? In that conversation, just beyond the base optimizations I talked about, we really work strongly with the ecosystem, both hardware and software, to provide optimized use cases so that the industry can adopt them, and that further accelerate the digital transformation, which is the need of the hour today. And then beyond that, when you're talking about it, it's not only about just transformation, it's the transformation at the cost, performance, and experience to their customer. At the end of the day, we win if you are able to provide a best experience to your end customer. All right. I'll close by talking about some of the examples. It's best kind of understood when the customer is working with us. Given that I primarily drive the India business consumption discussion, I focus on India example. Hopefully, a lot of you know about State Bank of India. It is one of the top 50 banks globally with probably 750 million plus accounts at the last counted, probably more right now. They were looking for moving to a legacy environment to a cloud environment. The first transition, as I said, from being a classical environment to say, hey, I want to do cloud-based services internally. They're primarily looking at a private cloud as a step one. In that conversation, we worked with them. We worked with them in terms of the transition to be able to enable them to how they define their reliability, their security, their agility to meet their SLAs to the remote branches, what have you, in terms of their transition. For the interested, do reach out to us or Pi, and we'll be able to share that customer conversation on SBI. Second, Zoho. Zoho is a different ballgame. It is one of the poster childs on success, software as a service success in India. It is one of the ones that, if you think about it, I talked about this whole IOPS and storage problem during my platform conversation, right? So for them, the ability to meet the SLAs to their SMB customers necessitates a different kind of architecture, okay? And when they looked at that and they wanted to give a particular uptime, a particular SLA at a particular cost, we were able to work with them based on our storage capabilities, our Ethernet adapter capabilities, and of course our compute capabilities. So at a platform level, right, how do we offer the best offering for Zoho, who can then provide or exceed the expectations of their customers, because the SME environment is very fragmented. They are present across the globe. So it was, again, a pride for us to be able to work with them, and help them win over a differential in their customer base. Moving over to Airtel, most of you hopefully know about it. It is one of the largest players out here. What we have worked on them is an ability to enable their platform that improves their network performance. They had 4x plus improvement when you're talking about data plane workloads. They have close to 2x improvement when you're talking about control plane workloads. By the way, now they're talking about how can we work on coherent server workloads, right? That's kind of one. And now they're also kind of coming back to say, hey, how do we run analytics to improve our network performance? So think about us, working with this kind of leading organizations. And again, when we come out, it's not about Intel working. We are very open. We rely on the ecosystem. It's all about Intel working with some of the ecosystem players to enable the best fit customer depending on the problem statement we have. That's how we, actually actualize the vision we have, which is about saying we enrich life of every citizen on Earth. Finally, last but not the least, I want to congratulate Pi. At the same time, we work very closely with Pi, and as I said, it's a pride that I see Pi DC here today, and it's a pride for me to be out here because Pi is one of our preferred customers, right? They have early access to the platform, they have early access to solution blueprints. As Bhaskar touched upon, their premier offering, Harbor One, is architected around Intel, and that's something that Bhaskar and Pi and Kalyan can talk about how we work closely to enable that. So once again, really appreciate you guys hearing me out. I just wish we could have done some Q&A later point of time, but we are there to reach out, and please reach out to us and congratulate Pi once again as we look forward to defining, what's the next chapter of cloud disruption that enables digital transformation for the world. Thanks, and I'll hand it back to Narina.
Thank you, Sama, for that presentation and your insights. And thank you to everyone who's sent us some questions so far. Do keep those coming as we move into the panel discussion, and we will have a section for Q&As. I'm sure that presentation will help a few of our delegates at this webinar to make more informed decisions about their cloud and data center strategies. I now invite the panelists and the moderator to join our presenters as we delve into the trends in our panel discussion titled Deploying Hyperscale Data Centers and Digital Infrastructure in India for Colocation, Hyperscale and Cloud. Please join me to welcome Deependra Shukla, Director of Data Center Cloud and IT Advisory at JLL, as he will moderate today's panel. Deependra is a technology stalwart with over 18 years of experience across multiple global enterprises such as NTT, Mphasis, and Infosys. He has worked in multiple geographies, and in his previous role, he was with NTT, where he was leading the organization's global managed services portfolio. Joining us today on the panel is Kalyan Mupaneni, founder and CEO of Pi DATACENTERS. Kalyan is one of the standout industry leaders who has been at the forefront, influencing the growing adoption of next-generation digital infrastructure and hyperscale data centers in the Indian industry. Welcome to the panel, Kalyan. Next, we have Abhinav Kotagiri, Director of Data Center Infrastructure and Projects at Pi DATACENTERS, who has joined us today on the panel and is one of the best minds around when we talk about hyperscale designing, energy efficiency, best practices, and project management. He has been instrumental in designing Pi's current hyperscale data center facility and the upcoming one in Kochi, in the Indian state of Kerala. Abhinav is an Uptime Institute ATD certified professional, and he has been a catalyst in ensuring 100% uptime of Pi data centers facilities. We also welcome Mustafa Looney, Managing Director for the Middle East, Africa and Greater India at Uptime Institute, the globally recognized advisory organization focused on improving the performance, efficiency, reliability of mission-critical digital infrastructure. Mustafa is responsible for developing the MEA markets for Uptime Institute, as well as driving the growth and quality of the company services portfolio. In addition, he is also mandated to plan strategies and initiatives to improve the market awareness and knowledge about the Uptime Institute and support the data center industry in the region, achieving higher standards and availability. We are glad to have with us today Richard Farrell, Asia Pacific Director for Cloud and Data Center Segment at Eaton Corporation. Richard is a technology evangelist, strategist, and consultant with over 20 years of experience in IT, data center, and hyperscale cloud space. He thrives in collaborating with customers to help solve their cloud, multi-cloud, and hybrid cloud plans. He advises on data center to build best practice and industry innovations. Being the bridge between engineering, sustainability planners, marketing and sales, and executive management, Richard is using his global and regional experience for Eaton in his role as Asia Pacific Director of Eaton's Cloud and Data Center business. And we finally welcome Rachit Mohan, India Head for Data Center Advisory at JLL. With under 16 years of real estate leasing, investments, and data center experience in India, Rachit holds a reputation of being a respected, trusted advisor in the space of corporate real estate practices and developer operations across the country. His major areas of contribution have been across strategic planning and activities like cost savings plans, best practices, master planning, and overall portfolio strategies. I now hand over to you, Dipendra, to start the panel discussion.
Hi, thank you very much. Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, which part of geography you might be in. Hello, panelists. Nice to see you finally. And I think let's get started. So, Kalyan, I'll start with you first. So, this launch is nothing short of a disruption in the data center industry. So what motivated you to bring about this paradigm shift?
Dipendra, when we did our first facility in India, we knew at some point that we knew where the market was going to begin with. 5 years ago, what we thought actually, by far exceeded the projections, and I think it's headed even more in the next 5 years. But then going back, right, when we did our first facility, we knew that this megawatt kind of capacity kind of an offering will come. So far in the Indian market, we have seen mostly the capacity is being sold in racks and etc. Right, that's the kind of the scale, if you will. So when during this design stage itself, we have designed our facility in such a way that it would scale to several megawatts. So that is where our seed of the thought was. But now, fast forward 3-4 years, we were ready to launch that. So it's actually kind of very interesting that what we thought exactly 3-4 years ago, that we knew that we are going to offer to our customers in multiples of megawatts has come to true today. Now, if you look at it, right, I mean, just to expand on that on a little bit more, because it's important, and today's session is about this mega launch. Pi has done several firsts, in the industry, including doing the first Tier IV Uptime certified data center at scale. Then you all know we have introduced these kind of data centers to a tier 2 city in a country like India. We've introduced a large-scale OpenStack-based cloud platform, which is based on Intel architecture, as Sommer was talking about. That one of its first of its kind. We introduced SDN at a data center scale for first of its kind in India. So on and so forth. I can go on with some of the disruptions that we have done, but I think it's time now to introduce India and especially Pi Data Centers is ready to offer data center capacities in multiples of megawatts.
Right. Thank you for that. Okay, my follow-up question to that will be, so now we see a lot of enterprises, they're adopting this hybrid strategy in their IT infrastructure. Now, how can Pi Data Center contribute to this demand?
So, Dipendra, I mean, India, right? In India is, if you specifically look at India as a country, MSMEs contribute to about, I think, 30% roughly to the GDP. So it's a very important sector that needs to be kept in mind when doing, anything, and especially in the data center space, it's even more important. So in that context, as you rightly pointed out, this hybrid model is extremely important for data center players like us. So on one hand, we have this colocation business, large mega scale data centers, which cater to these large enterprises. But then you also need, service offerings to this new generation companies, MSMEs, where the game of the day is speed, right? And that's exactly where cloud plays a very important role. It's very easy for these new generation companies and MSMEs to be able to quickly be up and running. And India, as always, has been, while it was on the, it's one of the last to adopt technology, but things have changed in the last few years. I mean, how smartphones have scaled, how broadband has scaled, how a number of internet users have scaled. Similarly, cloud is definitely one of the ways to go for MSME and the new generation companies. But having said that, colocation continues to be a bread and butter business. So for data center players like Pi, it's extremely important while we provide state-of-the-art tier 4 grade uptime certified kind of an infrastructure to the very large players. It's also very important at the same time to offer these cloud offerings so that it's easy. People can move at very fast pace, low TCO, quickly onto this cloud platform and move forward. So that's why we provide this basically these offerings, both cloud as well as colocation. And in some cases, customers prefer both, actually, right? Because if they need to do something very quickly, they go with a cloud thing, and then but with a much larger kind of an implementation, a long scale kind of a planning or a long-term kind of a planning, they do go with colocation. So we have customers who are specific to cloud, we have customers who are specific to colocation, and we have customers who actually take both depending on the speed at which they need to move, or also based on certain cost factors as well.
Okay. Thank you for that, Kalyan. Okay, now moving to the other side of the table. So Richard, I'll come to you now. Eaton has always been the sort of a forefront when it comes to adopting to the new technology. So how has Eaton planned its digital transformation journey, from the perspective of adopting a data center strategy at the same time cloud strategy?
Yeah, okay, Dipendra, great question. And it really is a buzz term, isn't it? Digital transformation. It's out there now. I don't think you could have a conversation in the cloud or data center space without mentioning those two words. Right. And we all know the global pandemic, it's really accelerated digital uptake, everywhere. You have people like Satya Nadella from Microsoft claiming earlier this year that they've seen 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months. So it really has forced everybody's hand, basically to go there a lot quicker than what we planned on. Saying that, the whole world is shifting towards digitalization. So Eaton has taken quite a patient, systematic approach towards our data center solutions and how to best leverage the cloud, not just for our customers, but for ourselves. We're about to launch our Bright Layer platform, and importantly, we're going to be implementing this in-house as well. That should give customers a lot of faith, the fact that we're not just selling them a product we don't use ourselves. We are actually implementing the full software suite across there. So you're going to hear a lot of talk around Eaton becoming the intelligent power management company. And a lot of that will be based around not just doing hardware anymore, but also doing our software play. If you look at what BrightLayer incorporates, and just to explain, BrightLayer, all one word, is our digitalization play out there. It really includes 3 software platforms: DSIM, EPMS, and pretty soon our predictive analytics tool for data centers, PredictPulse. When you think about it, any vendor, any data center operator out there, they really should be constantly adding value, out there, particularly in that digital space right now. And probably the best way you can actually help a customer out there on their cloud journey, their hybrid cloud journey, whatever it may be, is to gather all this data. They need help monitoring this, they need help measuring the data, and they need help optimizing, within their data center and cloud infrastructure. So a lot of what Eaton are doing with our customers, out there and our partners at the moment in that digital transformation space is trying to launch these software platforms to make sure they can make sense of all of this data.
Okay. Wow, so that's pretty exciting, Richard. So we're looking forward to hearing more on this then. Right. I'll move to Rachit now. And Rachit, do you think colocation will exist with cloud in the near future?
Oh, absolutely. When we are advising a lot of our customers today, most customers, what they're doing is they're looking at what are their core, and when they are relooking at their on-prem infrastructure and how to plan it going forward, they are looking at what are their core functions and what are the non-core functions. I think the immediate thing is which are the functions which can be put onto a cloud, and which are the functions we need to have servers in our own premises that can be on-prem or co-location. So that kind of a hybrid rollout is something that pretty much every company is looking at. So that's really the way to go. And and even within that, large users are going to look at not just one cloud platform, but multiple cloud platforms, and maybe going into a hybrid around that. So I think all these models are going to remain. One thing which is very good about Pi's business model is how they have a great service offering for the enterprise customers that we at JLL have been taking to them. And those kind of enterprise customers for some of their critical infrastructure would continue to see co-location as a solution along with cloud.
Okay, Rachit, thanks for that insight. So I think before I move ahead, let's do a quick poll on this. So Nairi, if you can just launch the poll right now, I think just 30 seconds, and let's get the poll up. Okay, so the question is, where do you see the movement of on-prem data centers in India over the next 5 years? You've got 4 options. First, of course, is hybrid, distributed workloads across co-location and cloud, co-location, cloud, or expansion of on-prem facility. So guys, 30 seconds, and let's have the results in. Okay, let's look at the results. Right. Okay. As expected, I think everybody, the audience is in sync with us. I think around 60% of them say that it's going to be hybrid. 16% are banking on co-location, 20% on cloud, whereas 4% are still talking about expansion of on-prem facility. Okay. I think we need to work on those 4%, right? Right. So I'll very quickly, I'll just go over now to the second part of my discussion now. And Richard, I want to ask you this question. From your perspective on enterprise IT strategies, globally, and regarding their preference of moving to, say, cloud or adopting a hybrid strategy, how do you see that?
Yeah, Dipendra, first of all, I agree with the majority of people there. I'm in that top tier. I would have agreed in the hybrid cloud. I was hoping I was allowed to vote. Look, hybrid cloud, look, there's not a single customer, big or small, that I personally speak to that are not going towards or already have adopted a hybrid cloud strategy. And some are very advanced in the process and been doing it for a few years now. Some are just starting out, but they all have something in common. They're all researching and embracing the flexibility that cloud allows. And that's pretty much across any industry that we speak with, not just data center, whether it's banking and finance, manufacturing, infrastructure. I think they all realize that they have to at least explore a cloud strategy, whatever that may be. And hybrid cloud probably is the leading one at the moment. I mean, depending on what analyst report you believe or read, it's around about 18 to 22%. And that's massive growth. I mean, to have any growth like that in any market is pretty impressive. However, importantly, it's as Kalyan has said in previous webinars, there is no one size that fits all. It really does come down to the organization itself, and even outside of the industry they work in. What your appetite for risk is, how advanced your DevOps teams are. There's a number of key considerations. If I have to pick the top 3 considerations that I come across mostly with customers, so the first one would be technology aspect, obviously. If as a customer, should I go cloud? Should I go multi-cloud? Should I go hybrid cloud? How do I get the best possible security? How do I get the best possible availability or uptime in my cloud deployment? So very important from a technology point of view. Number 2, and this is one that surprisingly sometimes get overlooked, is data sovereignty. Okay, so this is a big deal for a lot of cloud customers out there. They want to know where their data lives. They don't just want access to it. They want to know where it is. Now, this is an important consideration for banking and finance, insurance, legal, government sort of customers. They're probably the ones that, they want to know where the data lives. It doesn't mean they won't go down that track, but they really have to know how it's actually owned and shared like that. The last aspect, and this is important to commercial aspect, it doesn't matter how great your technology is, if the accounts department don't like it and the procurement team don't like it, you're not going to get it. So, this isn't from the commercial aspect. They want to look at everything, not just the physical real estate, but they want to look at the efficiency and productivity gains that can be gained from that. As Norma mentioned, two very important aspects, TCO and ROI. If I'm going to go down the hybrid path, how can I actually, measure my investment? Is my investment in line with my strategy, and does it make commercial sense? So again, a lot of time, technology aspect, data sovereignty, commercial aspect. That's what a lot of IT enterprises we see. They're the conversations they want to have as they move towards hybrid cloud.
Okay. Thank you for that, Richard. I think I'll just sort of move to a little different question. I'm aware of the timings also around this. So I'll go to Rachit right now. And Rachit, I wanted to ask you this question. You see these global, cloud providers like Azure or AWS or GCP, typically they partner with hyperscale data centers in India for offering their services, within the India market. Now, do you think that this will continue to be the trend in the near future, and why would that be?
Absolutely, I think that will continue to be a trend for sure. That said, when the colocation operators, they have the first port of call to the system integrators or IT heads. Or CTOs of various companies, and when they are solutioning things and there is any kind of a hybrid solution which is being worked out, it actually tends to be quite seamless if you are going through the colocation hyperscale operator to build a hybrid solution along with an Azure or a Google Cloud or any of these. At the same time, Azure and Google Cloud are actually making their availabilities very easy for the customer to subscribe to. You can literally go to their website. It's very, very easy to create an architecture over there. So over a period of time, that is going to continue to keep getting, if let's say a customer is looking for a VDI solution or any of these kind of solutions, these will keep getting easier and easier to solution for customers.
Sure. Thanks for that, Rachit. So, Mustafa, sorry to keep you waiting. I'll just, my next question is to you. Now, you see these data center parks, in progress in India, right? So, what is the difference in Uptime Institute's approach to help these organizations build robust and reliable infrastructure, especially when these hyperscalers are coming into the market?
Yeah, thanks, Dipendra. So I think with the growth and that's happening in India, I mean, all this projection that we've heard earlier also, and we've been hearing from different players in the market, and we're going to see a lot of build data centers, and they're going to be this data center, the size of those data centers are going to be larger and larger to answer the demand. So that definitely will drive a lot of real estate actually players to come into the market. It's happening already. Going to lead to building larger data centers. We have seen announcements where people are talking about 200 megawatt data centers and all of that. So from our side as Uptime Institute, we have a long-standing experience. I mean, everybody knows Uptime Institute. We are very well known about tier certifications. However, we can help. We've been helping our clients for a long time around planning data centers and how to build data centers, especially when you're talking about this size. So most of the people will start asking questions about the locations, about the technologies to be used, especially the scalability and modularity around those data centers, the size, the type, and people will be looking also to build energy efficient data centers, and also tier certifications, how to optimize the cost, timelines, how to look building data centers that can be easily operated. So people look at ease of operations when they look into this kind of data centers. All of these aspects will be a lot of people when they go and build a center will evaluate this and will need answers before they go and hit the ground and building those data centers. So as Uptime Institute, we definitely can bring answers to all of these questions to those large scales or real estate organizations when they go and build data centers. As I said earlier as well, when you have such organizations, definitely they will have the funds, they will have the land, they will have the power, but most of the time they will lack the knowledge. There are already players in the market today that already know how to build data centers. Definitely Pi is one of them, but we're gonna see real estate players with big money coming into the data center today. And I think we have a massive role to play as Uptime Institute in helping those people build data centers according to the industry standards, answer all of these questions that we've mentioned, and also bring some standardization to the market. When you see a massive growth and a massive data centers being built, and also having a third-party organization like Uptime bringing this kind of expertise and helping secure high resiliency and robustness on those data centers, it's a factor that definitely these people will be looking at. And we have seen a lot of people coming to talk to us about this as well. So I think as Uptime and also other players in the industry, there are a massive role to be played on this. And the years to come are very exciting. So.
Great, awesome. Okay, Abhinav, very quickly, if you can just shortlist or rather tell me about 3 challenges that you experience, from an operation standpoint.
Okay. In the recent past, as you've seen, during the pandemic, okay, the manpower was one of the constraints, right? So because of what are the infrastructure we have built in with 100% automation, right? We could run the complete operations with very minimal manpower, right? And that is one of the core strengths of us. So having with the Uptime Tier IV certification and automation what we have built in. So that has really helped us during this COVID situation. Having zero downtime and the complete service. And the next one was with the location. Initially, customers used to made a difficult decision to migrate from this tier 1 cities to come to the tier 2 cities, right? And the kind of infrastructure what we have built in with the kind of PUE or the efficiency what we have maintained and the quality of power, and the later on we had the customers all over India being migrated to the data center, and we are offering the colocation centers mostly on the colocation services. So the next one is like on the capacity planning. As you know, data center, you don't know the kind of the customers that they are coming, right? And but you have to build in the complete infrastructure, and you have to have the energy efficiency, the right places. So we have designed such a way that it's a kind of modular infrastructure, so that we can have the loading on the equipment at the maximum to have a good energy efficiency, and as well as have the optimum utilization of the space.
Okay, great. So thanks for those three. I think Rachit has to sort of drop off. So Rachit, before you leave, I want to ask you one question. I mean, you heard about from Abhinav about the challenges, and Mustafa was talking about the kind of investment which is happening. So now, according to you, what are the challenges that are currently prevailing in the India data center industry, and what measures would you like to recommend there to mitigate these challenges?
I think I would actually look for Kalyan's views on something of this, because end of the day we are advisors. Entrepreneurs like Kalyan are the ones who are actually out there, liaising with the government and at various sources to get these things through. But I'll take a stab at this. I think one thing that we've seen on the challenges, and when we look at the lobbying which is happening at the state level, state government level, or the central government level, is about getting certain benefits around around getting land more easily, or approvals more easily, making data center approvals more single window and all. That said, a lot of the devil still lies in the detail around the complication, because this data center as an asset class sits somewhere between yes, there's a real estate angle, but there is IT. It is IT infrastructure, and it is heavily connected with the telecom industry. And what happens is today, when we are looking at interconnections between data centers, there's heavy level of dependence on for fiber connectivity. You are dependent on telecommunication service providers. The way the regulatory framework and all is placed today, there are certain challenges around that. There are further challenges around the way in terms of the way power is being looked at, or let's say today, if this is going to be a guzzler of an asset class, and looking at any kind of, if let's say an entrepreneur is looking at setting up a platform and wants to buy renewable power, it's just the complications around that is always very high, especially if let's say they want to go in for an open access kind of a scenario. It's especially for multinationals to get into it. So those are the kind of challenges which are there, which one needs to be aware of. Maybe Kalyan, you can also give a few pointers over here.
Yeah, I mean, as you rightly pointed, Rachit, I mean, I think compared to multinationals who are coming into the country, for a player like Pi, who's the local player, homegrown, it is relatively, a little bit more simple, I would say, not simple, but relatively easier. And, and basically what we have done with our facility actually very quickly speaks for that. But I think talking about challenges, yes, there is a need to, work on the regulation. And this is where some of the local players working together with our in the industry, peers in the industry, we're planning to work together. We're doing some work already, as you said, at the right levels to make sure it's much more streamlined, the approvals and approvals process, etc. And when it comes to incentives, also, what you see is not necessarily what happens on the ground. So there is a huge scope for improvement. We are working with the government wherever possible, with the right regulatory bodies to streamline these as much as possible. So definitely a lot of scope for improvement there. I think this is where I think the global players, it's a good opportunity to partner with the local players like us for their global demands, so that they don't have to deal with all the red tapeism and etc. So that it's much more straightforward. But things have gotten much better, and we are doing our part to definitely make this better by partnering with our peers in the industry.
Kalyan and Richard, thank you very much for that. So with that, I'll go to my next poll. Nairi, if you can help me with the poll question now. Okay, my question is, what do you find most challenging or lacking when evaluating a data center? Options are cost, security, uptime, or all of the above. 30 seconds, and I think then we can have the answers. Okay, right, all of the above. So I think this was something that everybody has in mind. Cost, of course, plays an important role. I think Richard and Mustafa also touched upon that important aspect. So does security, and so does the uptime of it. Right. I think with that, Rachit leaves our panel as he has another engagement. So I'll move to my next question. And Mustafa, this one's for you. How important is the certification of data center for the owners as well as consumers? And what is the kind of growth that you're seeing for the tier certification when it comes to a larger India region?
Yeah, great question, Deependra. So I think on the certification aspect, I mean, the market definitely will, especially on emerging markets, and the markets always will need, say, an organization that will come and play that role, a third-party role where they can get that kind of evaluation, and also an organization that is worldwide recognized for its performance and also knowledge about data centers. So that's where the role Uptime Institute has been playing. And so I believe that from the owner's side, so there is the center owner side, there is a different aspect to this. So a lot of people might look into this as just as a marketing point, which is valid. But however, there are a lot of aspects also when you build a data center where a certification body like Uptime Institute would play. One of them is to guarantee that there is a consistency across the project. So when you design a data center and you go and build it, sometimes it's very challenging all the time to build exactly the same design. So a lot of people will say, I would love to get what they paid for. So always contractors would be challenging to control when you build a data center. So having like Uptime Institute part of a project always will help the owner secure that the design has been done according to the requirement and the objectives set by the client. And also our methodology when we do the facility certifications is that we do test the facility to its limits. So anything that was not done properly, was not implemented according to the design, will definitely be found by our team, and that will be considered a discrepancy. So as an owner, that will give that ability to fail safe before you go operational on your data center. So on the operation aspect, definitely, and especially with the global issue today that we have around skills and the data center resources. So building robust operations and management model to run a data center is very, very important. So we do play a massive role in there, as well as Uptime Institute throughout our FMO services and tier certification operation sustainability. So, but when you look at it from the enterprise side, looking for a colocation or looking for cloud services, I mean, having a data center that is certified reduces that due diligence. So if you are an enterprise client today, you have a lot to juggle. So especially when you start going hybrid, dealing with the resiliency across all of this platform, with the cloud, data center, on-premise data center, colocation, and all. So a lot of people don't have time to go really and go and do diligence about the colocation data center. So they refer to certifications, and that, as a data center owner, gives that edge when you speak to enterprise clients that You don't have to do the diligence about my data center. I've already done it myself. I've already certified, for example, by Uptime, and that gives that kind of peace of mind to an enterprise client when he moves to your data center, is that it has been already reviewed by neutral third party, and it has been proven resilient and then meeting the objectives that such an enterprise client is looking for. So on the growth side, I think definitely we're going to see a lot of people going that. We have seen that in the Southern Indian part as Uptime Institute as well, seeing a lot of people talking to us about this. A lot of people are changing their minds about certification. So we're going to see growth around certification, the same as we're expecting growth around data centers. And I think it's a positive thing for the entire market. And also we will see there will be, especially because of the COVID, we're going to see a push from the government's entities to get more actually access to these facilities. And that definitely will include a requirement related to certifications. So it's going to be more and more from government side, because what people have gone through the pandemic, and it has been very challenging, been very difficult to deal with outages and access to data centers and all of that. So people will be looking to more resilient data center in the future. And I think government and enterprise clients will be asking for this more and more. And I believe you guys in Pi are well positioned to take that, discussions with these government entities and also and this enterprise clients in the market in India. So I think the future is bright, and for on the certification side as well. And we are looking forward to help a lot of clients in India to do that. So.
I think you touched upon a pretty important point. I think it's now becoming imperative on the organizations themselves, where they are consciously keeping in mind that they have to go for certifications, not just having a tier 4, be responsible, like how Pi has done it, and there today, you talk about 99.995% uptime. That's something that you moment you say Pi, you know for sure that you're going to get it. So I think it's something which is really, really good. So I just can't hide my excitement, Kalyan, now, so that I'm going to ask you a very disruptive question, if I can say that. Partnership with Yota. I mean, that's another groundbreaking decision. So, I want to know what motivated you to do that. Is it the tier 4 bonding which was there, or what was it? I mean, and how do you see it, at a global level?
No, I think, see, in a country like India, where where the industry is growing and a lot of more scope for growth, it's going to be a multiplayer market. And when the industry is going at this pace and at this scale, and then we have international players coming into the country, especially while competing, it is very important to work together. It's very, very important to work together. And we definitely are always were open for a like-minded partner. And when we reached out and when this idea came, when we mutually spoke, both Yota and Pi, about this, we thought it's a great idea. We wanted to play to each other's strengths. We have our own strengths. We are in one part of the country, they're in a different part of the country. Both are tier 4, like you said. Yes, there is definitely a huge common element there. Uptime tier 4, and so we want to kind of use each other's strengths and make it a win-win, because it's very important. Today, disaster recovery is very important, and you have huge customers in South, you have huge customers in North, West. So all of these, how can we, no one player can solve the entire puzzle. So it's important. This is where the partnerships come in, right? And I think we can make it a huge win-win. So we saw that opportunity. We thought, come together and do this. And at the same time, in addition to that, we've also, when we discussed, we are also going to work together to strengthen the industry in terms of regulation and other things. And we are going to do our part by working with the respective regulatory bodies to strengthen the industry as well.
So Kalyan, thank you for that. And I think Mustafa will be happy because we've got two Tier 4 data centers, and I'm pretty sure he'll be happy if we sort of form a network of Tier 4 data centers all across the globe. Okay, I'll go to Richard now. So Richard, how do you view the data center market in India? And if you can just give a little bit of a global perspective, how does Eaton see and how do you see it? So, I mean, both the perspectives differently, whatever way it's comfortable.
Yeah, sure, Dipendra. And look, I think one thing we can all agree on is it's the absolute market to be in right now, cloud and data center. You know, the growth, whether it's local, whether it's regional, whether it's global, the growth trajectories out there just aren't slowing down. I've been in this industry a little while now, and you know, usually when you read a lot of data and that sort of stuff, they have 3 years, 5 years, whatever it may be out there. And you know, after every 3 or 5 years, they predict, well, it's going to slow down, it's going to flatten. It's not. It's accelerating. You know, even with the pandemic, you know, out there, I think our industry has proven that we're pandemic proof. Okay, we're one of the few industries that are still doing very well and having growth rates. Although those growth rates have slowed, we're still having growth rates, you know, globally in the data center market. If you have a look at where the growth rates are now globally, it's around about 6% to 8% compound annual growth. Now that's almost half what it was at the beginning of 2020. So it definitely has slowed down. But if you compare that to India, India is 11+% compound annual growth. And that's current data, you know, as well from just 8 weeks ago that we cross-referenced as well. So India is looking at almost in some cases, twice the growth of other areas in the world. So, you know, Pi Data Center launching now, the fact that they're Tier 4 is what as well, they're in the right place at the right time, without a doubt. I would say probably the biggest challenge on a global scale, and particularly in, let's call them data center emerging markets, you know, out there at the moment, is can the infrastructure keep up? Okay, so we know the data center growth is there. We know that's not going to slow down. It's great building a data center, but you need everything. You need roads, you need power, you need connectivity, you need water, all these sort of things, you know, out there as well. And we are noticing that these are becoming more and more prevalent conversations when talking with data center operators, and it's based purely around that growth. Can all this infrastructure actually keep up? But if you have a look at, you know, overall, like I mentioned, the data center is, although it's slowed down a little bit, it's still accelerating. And, you know, due to a number of reasons, a lot of which Bhaskar mentioned in his opening presentation, you know, India is primed in the right position now to see, you know, capitalize on that data center growth.
Right. Okay. Richard, thank you for that. Mustafa, I have one more question. I'm very much itching to ask you that, but I think let me run the poll first because I don't want to miss out of the poll. So Nairi, if you can have the third poll question. Okay, the question is, what is the most important factor that you would consider while outsourcing your IT? Options are redundancy for every component in the data center facility, almost 100% uptime, multi-layer security, or all of the above options. So 30 seconds starts now, and the clock is ticking. Okay, we're waiting for the results. Right, the survey ends. Oh, okay, all of the other, that's good. Nobody selected multi-layer security, okay? I think maybe because it's a little bit of a given thing. Everybody assumes that, you know, it's going to be a secure facility. I think that's something which sort of goes hand in hand with data center. At least we've seen in the pandemic scenario where I mean, at least I know for a fact that there are 2 data centers beside my house where I saw them being in a very secure and heavily militarized zone. I mean, though I don't live in any military area or anything like that, but we could see that the level of security which is there. And of course, data centers are known to be secure facilities. Okay, that's good. So Mustafa, without further ado, let me ask you this. I've been pestered to ask you this question. Now, you know, data center outages, you know, they say that it's rampant. I find it hard to believe, but, you know, still people say that they are rampant. But assuming that there is an outage, so how can data center owners mitigate or, you know, minimize that risk of outages?
Yeah, so I mean, on the outages, I mean, maybe as you might be aware, Uptime runs like an annual survey We've been doing that for the last couple of years. And actually the results we get about the outages have been really consistent. So we've seen that the outages in the data centers are actually increasing, okay? And actually even the frequency of the outages increasing. And one very important thing as well is that when we ask the people about how, if they could prevent actually these outages, so 70% of the people, when they did actually the root cause analysis about these outages, they found that 75% of the outages they had, that definitely they could actually prevent those if they have taken actually some actions on their data centers. So, I mean, when you dig down about the reasons about these outages, the main actually three that have actually reasons that have the highest proportion on this are one is the power and cooling, and the other one is, second one is the software and IT, and the third one is the network. And surprisingly, when you talk about cloud provider or software as a service, the proportion of the outages they have to sleep is very low. So, which is means that those guys are doing something right. So, when you look into what the organizations should be doing today, is the majority of those outages you can, if you check, you find out are attributed to human errors. When you look into the human errors, a lot of people categorize this that as people doing mistakes. But when you look into deeper, you find that people doing mistakes because of all reasons as well: lack of training, like people cutting corners when they build their data center or they build their infrastructure, lack of resiliency, or the absence of people that are responsible of guaranteeing the availability, the highest, the 100% availability of the site. So, having said that, so today that brings us to a topic of a major issue in our industry today, which is the shortage in resources and also the skills issue. So that it's hard to believe, but the outages are still increasing despite all the improvement that have been done in the design, people actually pushing the limits of the design and trying to improve. But with the issue that is related today to the human, I mean, the shortages in our industry and the issue of skills, I believe that the center organizations today have a major role to play in developing, I mean, serious HR programs to train people, hire resources at very early stage from university and try to build those resources. And especially if you look into this in India today, with the entrance of these big players like the cloud providers, the major cloud providers today, those people have the means to hire resources, qualified resources. So it's going to be challenging as well to the local players, the center players, to hold on their resources. Well, having actually programs to retain the resources is very, very important for the center organizations today in India, because with the growth we're talking about, Richard mentioned that the infrastructure needs actually to sustain the growth. So you need to be able to scale fast, and that also applies on the resources. When you go and build, when you run a 1 megawatt data center today, maybe it's less challenging to build an operations and management team around it. But when you start talking about 20 megawatt, 30 megawatt facilities, that's literally a small village. And you need really a lot of resources to operate these facilities, not only the number, but also the skills, the capabilities of running such data centers to avoid this kind of outages. And also that's on the data center physical infrastructure. So you can look into the outages from the aspect of the enterprise as well. I mean, you can see the pool that most of the people are going hybrid today. When you move from the traditional data center business before, when you have your main data center and a DR, and you don't have an issue, it's easy to manage. But today, with a hybrid model where you have loads on the cloud, on-prem, you're using managed services. Sometimes you have many like data centers where all of these workloads are distributed. How to grant resiliency? When you are a CIO in a bank today and you have workloads distributed across 6 or 7 facilities or platforms, it's a nightmare for a CIO to guarantee that kind of resiliency. So hence that, I think having software and IT as a second proportion of the outages that we got is uptime. So I think people should start looking into it across the board. I mean, from the IT side of it, as well as the physical infrastructure. And we believe, I think, this will continue to be a challenge. I think all of players in our industry today have a role to play into this. I think we should be happy to be in a growing industry, and also that we need to be very, very pay attention to all of this aspect today. So yeah, that's I think brings it to the outages in our industry today.
Thank you, Mustafa, for that. I think one of the key points which Richard had also mentioned about, using automated systems, in place, and the heavy side on or towards these, software automation on the management side of things. I think that may play a key role in identifying and then eliminating those human errors that we were talking about.
Definitely, this will help. I think, especially after the pandemic, when we're going to see people, I think when we get to the new normal, we're going to see a lot of people changing their policies and putting actually really policies to actually deal with pandemics, and also more of DCIM, automation, and artificial intelligence in a data center will be in the plans of the center owners. I think more after the pandemic, we're going to see these plans implemented. I think a lot of people have started already. I mean, in the first phase, people were trying to deal with all of these challenges, but actually interim plans have been put in place to increase automation and reduce frequency of maintenance and bring in artificial intelligence into the centers. I think those plans will be more robust and more mature after we get out of the pandemic, where we get to hopefully to a new normal soon, where people, I think, will get there. So,
thank you, Mustafa, for that. Abhinav, I know that you've been very quiet, but just a related question to you now. How do you ensure proper utilization of capacity, with respect to power, cooling, and space, of a hyper data center like Pi data center?
Okay. So Jesse, our design is very flexible and customizable. So with respect to the customer requirements. So the power density per the rack what we have designed will range from 3 kVA to 10 kVA or 15 kVA. So we can fit in any kind of requirements which comes in. And based upon that, we have done a design in a modular way. So we can have a contained space for a single customer for hyperscale. Accordingly, our equipment are designed in such a way to support the complete infrastructure. And with this design, so we can have optimum utilization of what are the resources we have in place. So it's complete credit goes to the design what we have done.
Okay. So let me ask you a question. And I think this question I'll be asking all the panelists also. So we had the recent pandemic, right? Now, in such a scenario, I hope it never happens again. But in such a scenario, what would be your recommendation or a guidance, towards business continuity, during such pandemic scenario? Abhinav, you there?
Yeah. So during the pandemic, as I was mentioning previously, right? Manpower is one of the key resources for the operation of RTC. So making the automation, 100% automation of your operations, whether with respect to IT or non-IT, will have additional hand with you to operate from the remote picture. So with the minimal resources in place.
Okay.
And that comes again with the design and as well as on the certification. When you go for a Tier IV certification, it's automation is a mandate with the Tier IV certification.
Mustafa, what would be your guidance towards a BCP or a business continuity during such a scenario?
I was on mute. I think, post-pandemic, I think most of the data center owners should look into incorporate actually serious plans into their business continuity around pandemic, into their business continuity, disaster recovery plans. So they need people should be drilling this and looking into detailed plans around how to actually to deal with such issues in the future. May take time to happen, hopefully never, but I think all the operators need to be looking to this after the pandemic. And the other point as well I would recommend is that look into building actually highly resilient infrastructure by having, aligning themselves, people at the center aligning themselves or their data centers to international standards like Uptime. It gives that kind of peace of mind that you have a highly resilient infrastructure that going to deal with the challenges. Or automation into data centers with all the aspects, artificial intelligence, CRM, and definitely it's going to be key. Will help them actually reduce staffing on site and actually manage even better the maintenance and operations of those data centers. This will require certain investments from operators. I think a lot of people need to get into that as well. On the operations side as well, I'm sure a lot of people have suffered this in India. Definitely people will be looking into actually having more budget related to spare parts and key parts of their services in the data center. And also one very important point is actually looking to the supply chain of this as part of the maintenance plan. Sometimes it's very difficult during the pandemic period to get products or to get parts when you have an issue on your data center. I think those points as well are very important. And I see also definitely also edge strategy wherever possible, move to the cloud wherever possible as well. So I think all of this would be recommendations to people post-pandemic to take into account and implement. So I think we're going to see a lot of change in the way people run and operate and manage data centers in the post-pandemic. A lot of lessons have been learned. I'm going to see, hopefully, most of these people taking actions and put these plans in place after
that. Mustafa, thank you for that. So, Richard, your perspective on this, please. What would be your guidance for a business continuity during such a scenario?
Yeah, Dipendra, let me take this from a little bit of a different angle, and then come back in. So let's remove the word business and say life continuity at the moment. It's changed every part of our life. There's an absolute blur now between business, personal life. I heard a term the other day called office, which is your home office. So HOFFIC. So we all work from a office now, apparently. I'll give you an example here at the moment. I have teenage children. They're very big into gaming, probably too much so, to be honest, but what do you do? And gaming is tipped to be a $40 billion industry, within just a few years. And you'll find that there's a lot of IT and even data center organizations that are pivoting some of their business to address that now. Yeah. The reason that's been accelerated is because of the pandemic. We're all WFH, we're all work from home now, and it's not just us as business professionals that are from home. Our kids are at home as well. They're studying from home, they're schooling from home. Their hobbies are at home as well. And it wasn't just us that couldn't go to work. Kids couldn't go to school, they couldn't socialize. So what did they do? They all picked up one of these and they all started talking to each other more and more. And, so now we've got us at home, trying to, make the best of it. We've got our children at home, we've got everybody at home, and there's that blur of lines there as well. What's the backbone of all of this? The backbone is cloud, okay? Everything's running in the cloud now. What's the backbone of cloud? Is data centers, over there. So I think that you'll find the business continuity, the amount of investment that goes, into business continuity, a lot of it's going to be funneled into the data center market, because that really is the backbone of our lives now. It's not just business anymore, it's across every part of our lives. So as a business owner, getting back to your actual, question there, I don't think having hybrid cloud's an option. I think it's a must. Whether you decide to have a business continuity solution just on premise, look, it's a massive risk in my eyes. And also too, I mean, how many of your workers are actually on premise now? Whether they be in business, in the data center, in IT. I guarantee that most people on this call are at home right now, taking that. So there's a number of different aspects that you have to think about for business continuity. But I really, truly believe that if you're not considering a hybrid cloud strategy and going to a good, tier approved colocation provider, you're putting yourself at massive risk.
Right. Okay, thanks for that. And last but not least, Kalyan, I'd like to have your opinion on the best guidance for, in Richard's terms, life continuity during pandemic. And
yeah, I mean, I kind of I agree with all of them, and my ideas kind of spread across whatever all said, starting with Abhinav to Richard and Mustafa. So to me, right, what this recent pandemic has taught everybody is that you need to be prepared for the worst, right? So nobody can take anything for granted. So gone are the days of on-premise, like Richard was saying, it has to be a hybrid model. It has to be a hybrid model. And within that, every organization, every enterprise is different. Their BCP model is different. Their tolerancy levels are different. Their failure tolerancy levels are different. So depending on that individual customer, a BCP plan will have to be put together. We're working with your cloud service provider or your data center services provider. You have to sit with them and figure out what certifications need to be in place, what is the tolerancy level, because it comes with a cost. Because BCP plans disaster recoveries come with a cost, right? Not everybody can afford a full-blown disaster recovery kind of a solution. So it is designed to basically the individual business requirements of that particular company. So that's what you have to do from a business standpoint. And now from a data center player or the owner standpoint, you have to design your facility or facilities in such a way that it is actually almost self-sustainable in pandemics like this, right? And that's one of the reasons why, I mean, as Abhinav was pointing and Bhaskar was telling in the very beginning, because we have chosen Uptime, Tier IV certification kind of a design on day one, right? And while people might say that, okay, this will not happen, this will not happen, we have seen what happened, right? And that's exactly why very few people, when everybody was working from home, when people got impacted, even with very little or very few people within the premise, we were able to, operate for almost now 9 months, with zero downtime and not even one customer being impacted. So that's why it's extremely important, both, for enterprises to have a BCP plan, and then data center players to actually plan your design and construct your facility and have processes in place to deal with these kind of pandemics.
Okay. Kalyan, Mustafa, and Richard, thank you very much. I think we'll end the panel discussion now, but before ending, I think we'll just take 1 or 2 questions. I think we're running over, we've overshot the time, and my sincere apologies for that, but I think we'll just take 1 or 2 more questions and I think we are done. One of the questions that I've got is, what are the security measures in a hybrid cloud? I have read many recent reports which report that public clouds are most insecure and hybrid is a combination of private and public. Wow, interesting. Richard, you want to take that stab at it?
How much time do we have? Yeah, look, it's sort of, I got a bit the amount of security investment in data centers. I think if I wasn't an infrastructure company, I'd go for a security company. Nobody's going to trust your data, in a cloud model, whatever it may be, whatever that cloud model may be, unless they've got 100% faith, in security. And we talk about the investment in growth in data centers. Go to the internet and have a look at the growth and investment and spend on internet security as well when it comes to this. I mean, this question may have been born from personal experience, on there, maybe not just reading as well. And there is one thing that a lot of, dare I say it, IT security companies love doing. They love a little bit of fear because fear sells products, out there. And perhaps going back quite a few years ago when cloud was really being adopted, wholesale out there, perhaps a lot of the cloud security measures weren't in place, or there were backdoors or loopholes out there. But, I would say that if you go to any data center provider here, and especially ones that have got a latest, data center infrastructure, especially Tier 4, part of that is actually closely looked at about how secure the facility, actually is. And I'm sure if you spoke to Pi, they would have a thorough rundown of all both the physical and virtual security that's in place. So I would say to I'm not quite sure of the person who asked that question, but I can guarantee that security is a lot better than what it was 5 or 10 years ago. So maybe if you did hear that or you read it somewhere, maybe just check how old that data is.
Right. Okay. Okay. I think most of the questions that have been asked here, I think they have been answered through our presentation. I mean, people talking about efficiency of design and then green data centers. I think some were answered by Abhinav and some were answered by Kalyan and Richard and Mustafa by you during your talk on the panel. I think I think let's do this. Parting thoughts, gentlemen, and I think then we'll close the discussion and hand it over to Nairi. So 30 seconds, parting thoughts. Kalyan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, since you mentioned green data centers, as I said, I think it's important to keep this in mind. And in our locations, we have open access facility through which we'll be able to draw green power from the grid. So that's one. But having said that, I think it's been a fantastic panel. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, everyone. And we are excited about this mega launch offer, offering in multiples of megawatts. So if you do have any questions, please reach out to us, to our team. But it's been a pleasure to have on such an esteemed panel.
Sure. Mustafa, your thoughts?
First of all, I would like to thank you, gentlemen, and Pi for this opportunity. It has been an absolute pleasure to spend this afternoon with you. On a final note, I think the last 9 months of this pandemic has actually taught us a lot of things. And on the data center aspect, I would recommend that if you're going to build a data center today, definitely look into the resiliency of your data center. Build robustness and a highly reliable and resilient data center definitely is a key to sustain the business. And to the point of Kalyan earlier, that for 9 months the Tier 4 facility has actually suffered 0 downtime. That's just exactly what most of the organizations or a data center operator, data center owner should be doing today. So that's again, thank you for the time and for all the panelists, and hopefully I'll have this in face-to-face soon somewhere.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I would have preferred. So, Richard, your thoughts? Apologies, mate. We're just eating into your dinner time. So.
No, that's all right. No problems at all. Look, I'll echo Mustafa's and Kalyan's thing. Definitely, you've got a lot of options out there in the data center space, but you really want to look for one that's highly tiered, has been audited, and assessed as well. And to Kalyan's point, I mean, we could have another whole webinar on this, but the sustainability and green aspect, out there, again, that's got to change how data centers are designed in the future.
Right. Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. We'll bring closer to this presentation of ours and our discussion. Nairi, over to you. So thank you very much. You guys have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
A nice evening. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your time. Thank you to Dipendra in particular for moderating this session, and thank you for all your insights. And I also want to say a special thank you to Pi for all the hard work they've put into this session. And I thank you for your time. I know it's been a long one, but thank you for those who stuck with us right through to the end. Have a great day, and we hope to see you all soon in real life one day. Thank you.